In the last 4 years, there has probably been no person as controversial around the world as Donald Trump. The former U.S. president has not only made headlines and caused controversy almost every day, he is even considered by many to be the worst president of all time. And although he has not been the most powerful man in the world for some time, it will hardly become quieter around him in the coming years. And even as an ex-president, he still has to follow some strict rules that make everyday life impossible. In this video, we would like to present some harsh rules that Donald Trump, as an ex-president, must abide by. We will show you, among other things, blatant security measures, severe restrictions on his private life, and also a rule that could even land Trump in prison. Let's start with a rule that is tough for most people, but is a reality for a former U.S. president. Namely, it involves arguably one of the most challenging moments in a person's life, deciding how to conduct one's funeral. While most people can probably only imagine their own funeral with their family and friends, Donald Trump has to accept that whether he likes it or not, he will be laid to rest in public at a state funeral. This rule has a centuries-old tradition in the United States, and the American military precisely regulates the formalities. Among other things, there are specific instructions about how fast the hearse can travel or how flowers should be placed at the grave. Moreover, as protocol dictates, not only the president himself is included in the planning, but his entire family. In the case of Donald Trump, that means his still teenage son, Barron himself, had to participate in preparation for his father's death ceremony. One thing that will probably already annoy Trump about his funeral is the fact that all the still living ex-presidents of the USA will be present at his funeral. Many of them, such as Clinton, Bush, or Obama, are not known to be particularly attached to Trump, which could possibly become noticeable during a eulogy. Let's continue with a rule that shows that a president's private life will be minimal once he's out of office. Even though Trump is more likely to be able to organize his daily life as he wishes, there is one very normal thing he will have to do without from now on. Trump will no longer be allowed to drive himself on public roads for the rest of his life. In fact, for every trip in a car, Trump must first hire the Secret Service's trained drivers to make the trip. These drivers are precisely trained to chauvinist presidents and are thus supposed to ensure that even ex-presidents are always protected from attack. However, this rule could become a more severe test for Donald Trump than for other ex-presidents. The billionaire, known to have made his fortune in real estate, is a big car fan and owns numerous luxury cars. However, he will never again be allowed to sit behind the wheel of one of these cars. Next, we come to a rule that Donald Trump, along with Jimmy Carter, is only the second U.S. president to have to abide by. It involves one of the most controversial issues of his time in office and one of very important, especially in the current global situation: the right to health insurance. In the U.S., a provision ensures that every person who has worked for the government for more than 5 years receives lifetime health insurance, paid for by the government. However, since Trump has only been in office for 4 years and has not had an official government job before, he must pay for his health insurance. Although this may not be particularly difficult for him, with an estimated fortune of more than $3 billion, he must abide by this only rule if he wants to remain covered by health insurance. The following rule concerns another activity that is part of normal everyday life for almost everyone, and about which very few people have to rack their brains: the purchase of a new smartphone. Although Donald Trump is no longer involved in political decisions after his term in office, there is still the fear that he, as the former most powerful man in the world, will fall victim to espionage attacks by hackers. For this reason, Trump is not allowed to walk into a store and buy a new phone without further ado. He can only do so if he has previously agreed on all the details with the Secret Service, which will protect the smartphone against all hacker attacks after the purchase and thus ensure that no state secrets fall into foreign hands. Incidentally, this is why Trump has been advised for years to get rid of his Android phone and switch to an iPhone secured by the Secret Service. According to reports, the president wanted to keep the Android phone for a long time because it was easier for him to use, but a security advisor finally convinced him to change the device. Now we come to a rule that will massively change not only Donald Trump's daily life, but also his wife, Melania, and his son, Barron. Because even though Trump is no longer president, he can't continue his life normally. The protocol for ex-presidents dictates that no matter where Trump and his family are, they must be constantly protected by Secret Service agents. Even on vacation, on an outing in nature, or out to dinner with friends, nowhere will Trump go in his life all by himself without a gaggle of Secret Service agents accompanying him. Even a life with spontaneous decisions is no longer possible. All visits and activities in public must first be clarified in elaborate situation meetings, and only if a complete security concept exists can the president pursue his daily activities. Let's Let's move on to a rule that could be fatal, especially for Trump. The following rule could destroy the rest of Donald Trump's life and create an unprecedented political situation. Namely, as an ex-president, he loses his immunity, which means his protection from legal proceedings. As an ex-president, Trump will therefore have to answer for his public and private actions from now on. Since he ran afoul of the law during his time in office and as an entrepreneur, he could now have to answer for this. Many accuse him, among other things, of evading taxes, passing intelligence information abroad, and even inciting the storming of the Capitol. Suppose investigators and judges find more evidence for some of these accusations in the future. In that case, it is not unlikely that Trump will have to face numerous court cases sooner or later, and in the worst case, even end up in prison. So losing immunity is the most dangerous rule for Trump, which could have enormous implications for his future. The following rule primarily affects the former president's future staff. As an active president, Trump received an incredible $100 million a year, which he used to hire nearly 400 people on his staff of advisors to help him with all of his decisions. Even though Trump is now no longer president, like many other ex-presidents, he will likely continue to appear in public, speak, and remain politically active in some form. However, as an ex-president, instead of $100 million a year, he now receives only $100,000 a year for this, which is enough for only one employee instead of 400. Even though Trump calls himself a multi-billionaire, it remains to be seen whether he will continue to invest millions of dollars in his political campaign. Even when he was still president and wanted to have the allegedly falsified election results checked with the help of many employees, he did not use his own money for this. Instead, he simply called on his supporters to donate money to him so that he could pay his staff. Let's continue with a rule that is actually self-explanatory, but which many fear Donald Trump will not follow. As a former U.S. president, you steered U.S. policy for several years and gained insight into all intelligence and military secrets. Since you thus have information that is strictly protected from the public for the rest of your life, as an ex-president, you are obligated not to tell or publish any of these secrets. However, some fear that Donald Trump might talk a lot about confidential details of his time in office in the future, causing more political scandals. However, if he does break this rule, he would face numerous lawsuits, as he could quickly become guilty of treason. Finally, let's talk about a rule for ex-presidents that will take longer for Trump to comply with. As a former president of the United States, you actually take on a representative role that is supposed to be politically neutral. This includes not interfering in the political decisions of the current government and not criticizing it. However, whether Donald Trump will abide by this rule is more than questionable. After all, he is known for sharply attacking other politicians and often even insulting them below the belt. The billionaire has also already announced that he will return in some form, and there is already speculation about whether he will start his own political television station or even a new political party. Although the rule that an ex-president should not engage in political criticism is not officially regulated in the Constitution, interfering in political matters is still considered highly impolite. And that's it for our video. Which of these rules surprised you the most? In any case, we're curious about your opinion, and we'll see you next time.